All right. It looks like our next run is ready to go. So everybody get ready for Nestani with Scooby-Doo.
There we go.
I assume so.
Yep,
Oh,
you're
okay.
good.
All right. I didn't know. All right. What's up, everyone? My name is Nestani, and today we're going to be running Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. Specifically, we are going to be running the All Monster Tokens category, which I'll discuss in a second. But first, joining with me on the couch is my co-commentator, Jax. Jax, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up? I'm Jaxler. I ran like 3 games yesterday.
Yeah, that's the fourth time.
Yeah, so this is the. You're not rid of me yet, y'all. But this is a really cool run. Don't go anywhere because the Nestani is absolutely busted at this game and this run specifically.
Yeah, and speaking of this run, I just wanted to go into some prerequisites before we hop in. Just because there's going to be a lot of things flying at you really quick. But first, just zooming out, the core concept of the run is that we are collecting the collectible in this game called monster tokens. Basically, monster tokens have like various monsters from Scooby-Doo franchise that they put in this game, like, you know, the Green Ghost, the Black Knight, you know, the Witch, etc., etc. The Caveman, you know, all those villains are on monster tokens. So we have to collect all of them. There are 21 in total. And to get them, what we're really going to be doing is that in like the first half of the run, we're going to be collecting all of these upgrades and power-ups that will allow us to collect all the tokens. And so like the first half, we're going to be collecting power-ups. The second half, we're going to be basically just jamming down tokens. And we're only going to be fighting 2 of the 4 bosses in this game, which it will make sense as we go on, but I just wanted to give you the rough outline just so we're all prepared for what's about to happen in this run.
Yep.
But without further ado, I'm gonna count down from 3 to go, and then we will go. So time will start then. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights is a 2.5D/3D action platforming Metroidvania, meaning that there are a bunch of upgrades that we need to collect to get into new areas. And so these upgrades are going to be called inventions. That's what I will be referring to as we go along. And as I said, we are going to basically be gunning down these inventions right from the get-go. But first, we're going to come into this little siren because this is where our first monster token is. It's going to make this little ting sound. Ting! Right there. And that's our first token of 21. So we have 20 more to go. And they're not all going to be that easy to collect. And another thing that you also saw me collecting was these things called Scooby Snacks. Now, Scooby Snacks are collectibles in this game that we need to pay these things called snack gates. This is a snack gate. We need 25 of them to pay it. We had 25 snacks. We pay it, and we go right in to Clamor 1. And here we're going to just hold forward a little bit just to get a bit of extra movement before this cutscene plays. And then what we're going to do is a tricky jump known as Chandelier Jump, which looks deceptively easy. But luckily we got it first try. And then we're going to collect those 2 snack boxes up there, get the key, and collect and talk to Holly. Now, Holly gives us a very key invention known as the map, which we will get back to, but it sets up a trick later on in the game called pause storage. But we'll talk about that later. But for now, she more importantly spawns Don Knotts, who is the voice actor of the groundskeeper, who gives us the shovel upgrade, which is our first major upgrade of the game, which allows Scooby to dig because dog dig needs a shovel. Joke here, insert, right? And so right here, what we're going to be doing is going into Shock 1. Now, a key thing about this game is that everything that moves in the game that is not us is on a set cycle. So this means like any enemies that are like walking in a circle, or these flying fishes that are flying up and down, or the rats that you're about to see, they're all moving on a set cycle. And so what we do in pretty much every level is we have a specific cycle that we're trying to make in order to dodge these enemies and move through the level as fast as possible. And not only are we prioritizing minimizing the amount of time that we spend in each level, but while we're doing that, we're also maximizing the amount of snacks that we're going to be collecting, because snacks are a major point in this game and a major time sink, because the TLDR, the snack gates scale all the way up to 850, and so we need to collect a ton of snacks throughout the game. Right here, this is rubber band skip, where we just jump up to this box without the need of Shaggy's help. Normally we need Shaggy's help to get up there, but we're a strong independent dog and we don't need no man. So we just roll up right there by ourselves, and then we're going to jump through these hooks, making sure that we don't get slammed down. And then we're going to pay our second snack gate of the run, the 50 snack gate. As you can see, they're scaling up. And the next one we're going to pay is a 500 one. So we're going to be collecting a bit more as we go along. Right here, this introduces us to the Sicky Tart. Now, we can't run or jump on this tar unless we go on that rope. If we walk off the tar, we can jump again, but we cannot run, jump, or dash or do anything on the tar. We're pretty much glued to that surface until we get a certain upgrade from the Black Knight. But we're not going to fight the Black Knight. Little spoiler because of a trick that we're about to do. But right now we are going to get our second major upgrade, the springs, which basically will allow Scooby-Doo to double jump instead of just these single jumps that I've been doing. And just like that, we go across the back half. We're actually clipping through some invisible walls there, which is why you saw me kind of move a little funky there. But right now, what we're going to do is that we're going to skip the Black Knight boss fight and skip all 4 levels known as the Fishy Clues levels in like 5 seconds. And so what we're going to do is that we're just going to wait for that crab to walk in front of that barrel, and then we're going to just fall through the water, and then we're going to void warp. And then we're just going to warp to the other side of the level. And then we're going to be in Pier 1, which is like way deep into the game.
Yeah, so what essentially happened there is that based on a set cycle of the water flowing up and down, Nestani was able to clip underneath the kill plane of the water. And so if you go too far out of bounds in this game, the game will actually trigger what's called a void warp, where it voids you out and teleports you to a default location in the level, which is typically where the level's supposed to be entered from. And so that void warp in particular puts us right the other side, which is an exit that we're not supposed to be able to take until way later into the run. Nestani's going to take an intentional death here in order to not only skip this cutscene, but also cause the keys that are going to spawn here to adjust their hitboxes in a certain way. So we're here way earlier than we're supposed to be. We're supposed to have an invention called the helmet, which allows us to break these crates in order to get the keys. But some of these we can just sort of like squeeze Scooby's hitbox into them, but this one right here requires something that we call fish cringe, where we bonk into the fish there, stun it, and then that allows us to squeeze between it and the box to clip us through and grab the key on our way out as the game resolves that collision. And so that allows us to get through all of those keys there without having the helmet invention here. Otherwise, we would have to do a pretty major backtrack. Now going into this section, we're going to be seeing another monster token here. Nestani is going to be making use of a property of this charge attack that we've been using for pretty much a lot of our basic movement here, where that your hitbox when you're charging is only the size of your head, and you're pretty much invincible until your head bonks into something. And so as a result, if you angle Scooby in specific ways, you can actually cause him to completely avoid things like enemies and stuff. And that can avoid collisions and taking damage and stuff and allow you to make tighter cycles. So he was able to get through all of those smashing blocks in one clean fell swoop right there. Going into Coast 3, we're going to be seeing a really cool use of iframes coming up here. There's going to be another monster token that we're normally not supposed to be able to get until we unlock the Super Smash invention, which is sort of a ground pound. We'll be getting that a bit later. But what you're going to see Nestani do here is approach here on a specific cycle to touch this flying fish while falling onto the water at the same time. This gives Scooby iframes, so he essentially becomes Great Dane Jesus for about a full second or so, which is enough time for you to be able to walk over the water and grab the monster token without having the prerequisite invention. Then from here, Nestani is going to go ahead and grab the warp gate so that he can avoid some backtracking later, and we're going to go back to the hub.
Yeah, and now we're going to be making our way to the helmet upgrade, which is the one that we just skipped. And basically, by touching that warp gate, that completes Fishy Skip and Black Knight Skip. So now we've skipped the need for the Black Knight invention, which basically gives us the galoshes so that we could move on the tar freely. But since we avoided the tar completely, and we're going to avoid more spots of the tar later on, we actually don't need to bother with Black Knight at all. And I wanted to actually call attention to another part of Scooby's charge attack, which is this thing you see me flying around these corners with. And you'll notice that I'm selectively using it, like such in spots like this, I won't be using it. And that's because at the beginning of Scooby's charge attack, he actually slows down. But as you notice, as he goes along through the dash further, he actually speeds up exponentially. So what we do here is that we only dash over longer distances rather than shorter distances, because if you just dash willy-nilly, sometimes you'll just, also yeet cycle, nodders, sometimes you'll just you'll just slow down. You won't get the full speed, and so you can really tell the difference between maybe a newer runner and a more experienced runner just by the way they use their charge and how selectively they use it. Because there's a lot of sections where it benefits you to not charge at all, even though it might feel like you need a charge there. And so right now we're going to set up a next skip called SCS, or Skull Cliff Skip, which doesn't make too much sense right now because we're actually going to go backwards through the Skull Cliff levels. But essentially what we do here is we hold up left on the D-pad and just walk through this gate. You can do that one at home. It's actually relatively easy. And the reason that we want to go through these levels backwards is because it's actually faster to get to the helmet by going through the Skull Cliff levels backwards than it is to go through the Hedge Maze levels forwards. And that's because there's a very long auto-scroller in Hedge 4. And basically, what we do is that we're going to clip out of bounds here. And we're going to do another Void Warp. And basically, a property of Void Warping is that it warps you to the intended beginning entrance of a level. And so what that means is right here, I'm going to do a skid jump. A skid jump, by the way, just extends the amount of iframes, or not coyote frames, excuse me, before we can input a jump. And we're going to jump over the death plane, hit the trigger, and Void Warp completely out of bounds. And as you can see, I warp to the beginning of Skull Force. Since we're going through these levels backwards, we're going 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going backwards through the levels, meaning that if we Void Warp in any of these levels, it will take us to where we want to go. And so that trick alone saves 1 minute, and then going through the Skull Cliff levels backwards by themselves just saves 2. So outright, we're just saving 3 total, rather than going through a very long auto-scroller in Hedge 4 and the other greenhouse levels, which also have 2 other snack gates. And again, snacks are time, especially when it comes to this game, and if we ever have to collect more snacks than we want to, it will actually slow us down. So what you'll see me do, and what you've been seeing me doing, is actually only collecting very certain snacks. And that's because we have these things called snack routes, and basically we only collect the fastest snacks in the game on any given route. And right there, we made that boulder cycle very nice. And then we're going to do a little bit of a Hail Mary jump, but trust me, it's not going to be that scary. We're just going to jump over this chasm, just like that. And then we're going to do a little ladder climb just to skip some unnecessary platforming to behind us. And then we're going to enter Helmet 3, or Hill 3, where the helmet is. I always like to call it Helmet 3. And basically at the top of this hill is where the helmet upgrade is located at. And so this would be where we would land if we went through the Hedge Maze levels normally. But right now I want to beep beep. Remember the map upgrade. That's where this is about to come into place. So essentially what we're about to do is we're about to do a trick known as pause storage. And basically what pause storage allows us to do is warp from anywhere in the game without the use of a warp gate. Now you've seen me activate the warp gate in Coast 3, and we're going to warp back to that warp gate. But normally you need to warp from a warp gate in order to go to another warp gate. But essentially we can just warp without the use of a warp gate because we're going to activate a debug menu which was left in by the developers. We don't really know how it works exactly, but we do know that it does work. So what I'm going to do is unplug the controller and press A at the same time. It's going to make that sound, and then I've successfully done the trick, and then it brings us 2 menus, and then we're just going to make our way through the menus and warp just like that. And there is a risk of quitting the game. Obviously, I was pressing A while hovering quit game, yes, but I have safety saves for every single one of these pause storages that I'm going for, so do not worry. And I'll hand it off to Jax to talk about what we're doing next.
Yeah, so Nestani is taking a short little detour over here to grab this warp gate. There's going to be a couple of monster tokens that we need to grab in the wreck and gas levels later, so we're just going to make a quick pit stop there, so that's registered in our warp hub menu later. On top of that, we went all of our way out here to go grab the Super Smash. We need the Super Smash as a hard requirement in order to beat the game, as well as get several of the monster tokens. It's a ground pound that allows you to hit buttons as well as ground pound on top of enemies to stun them or get extra distance off of them. And so this is going to take us into Lighthouse Right House Part 1. And so what you saw Nestani do right there is what's called a frame perfect. So whenever you charge something in this game and hit it with your attack, it plays a bonking animation. But if you let go of the B button, the frame that you collide with something, it actually cancels your charge animation, and as a result, any bonking animation that would normally play. And again, that is a frame perfect input that's dependent on a button release rather than a button press. So it's actually incredibly difficult to do consistently. And so Nestani did one there on the button so that he wouldn't bonk on the button, and so he could start his next charge more freely. He's going to try to go for another one here on the light bulb at the top. That's going to give him the Super Smash power-up, and he's going to perform another pause storage, which is going to take us back to Shock on the Dock 2, which is kind of going to be our central hub of operations here for a little bit. A lot of different places we can go to from here.
Yeah.
So there's 2 kind of split paths that we'll see when we get into creepy crawlies in the hallways. This is sort of like an intended shortcut to be able to backtrack here later. So as a result, we could actually end up skipping like part of the first creepy level by taking this route. And so we need to go out of our way to grab one more invention real quick before we make our way towards Green Ghost, which is the plungers. Now the plungers allow us to stick to very slippery surfaces and walk and charge up them, and so that's going to be critical for obtaining a single monster token, which is really unfortunate. A single one, and there was like a potential way theorized to get out of bounds and grab it, but there's invisible walls that actually spawn that are there until you pick up this invention. So it's at the moment it's currently a hard requirement. But this also in turn allows us to pick up another warp gate. This also happens to be sort of the branching path that leads towards the lab, which is like the end game. And this will be a nice, convenient point to warp back to later anyway. So there's the plungers. We're going to go grab them real quick, and then we're going to go ahead and warp back to the hub here. So we're going to backtrack our way through the hedge maze again here. So we're going to see a little bit of repeat movement, but a couple of things are going to be different. So first of all, Nestani already grabbed a bunch of the Scooby snacks that were in this area. So in this situation, he can actually avoid like having to jump around as much and can focus on doing some faster charge movement through here and take some tighter lines as well. On top of that, there's going to be 2 monster tokens that we're going to be backtracking here for that we weren't able to get earlier. This first one right here, which is the killer of every new AMT runner, because they will always forget this token. You can only open that gate with the helmet upgrade. And then there's going to be one more monster token that we're going to be getting, which is the Witch's monster token that we need the Super Smash for. This is that's another situation where so when you defeat the first boss, the Black Knight, at the very top of the Spooky Manor, you get an item called the Galoshes, which allows you to walk normally on that sticky tar, which usually prevents you from like jumping and moving super fast. And so you're normally supposed to have those galoshes in order to be able to reach sort of like a branching path in Hedge Part 3 in order to be able to grab the monster token. But Nestani, now that he has the Super Smash, will be able to do his skip in order to get it. So that's contingent upon the fact that, again, all the enemies are moving around on a set cycle as soon as you load in. And so what Nestani is going to be doing is getting to this sort of branching path at a specific point in the cycle so that he can do a ground pound slam off of one of these moving scarecrow enemies in order to bounce off of it, which then gives him his jump back and allows him to jump over the tar and onto a small piece of geometry, which lets him get into this sort of sub area here. It's nice, we got it first try, and then we can go ahead and make our way straight to the Witch monster token, and then we're going to immediately run straight into the thorn ball there, which is going to immediately kill us. That will take us back to the start of the level so we can go back through. Nice thing about this is because we did Skull Cliff Skip, this gate opens for us for free, so we can just take the shortcut back here, and this is going to take us back to Misbehavin'.
Another thing about that is that SCS is actually a really old trick, and we call it SCS because we are now actually skipping the Skull Cliff levels. Normally, the intended pathing is to go through the Skull Cliff levels once you get the Super Smash in order to get to Misbehavin', but instead we can just show up in Misbehavin' immediately by doing the same trick. And it was actually found out later that it was faster to collect the helmet by going through Skull Cliff backwards, which is why the trick originally had the name Skull Cliff Skip, because originally we only used it to go straight to Green Ghost earlier than intended. And right here is another place where we can use the plungers. As you can see, it basically has us on that hill there, has us up a little slope, and then we're basically going to run in a straight line down here, and then we're going to basically make our way to Green Ghost, but not before one of the most fun, interactive, cool, lit levels in the game that doesn't smell funny at all. What's that? What's that smell? Is that an auto-scroller?
Yeah, I think it's an auto-scroller.
And so I think this is also a great spot for any readings that we have, because we're going to be here for a while. It's a very long level.
Oh gosh. So, I do have a lot of things to say. But first, a question I've had since the beginning of this run. What is your favorite Scooby-Doo monster?
The fishy.
I really like Geronimo because his voice lines are also similarly very funny. We'll see him when we get to we'll see him when we get into the manor. It's less about like the design of the monster and more for us the sounds that they make in this game, because they are very funny.
For sure.
Oh. See, I'm kind of like, I don't know, a Scooby-Doo boomer. So I'm a big Ghost Diver fan.
Oh, that's fair.
Stabber. Nice. Valid.
They also make good sounds. They're kind of like, whoa. Yeah, and we'll be coming up on Twitter about here as well. So if we have any like incentives we want to plug, as well as any potential donations, this would also be a good spot to fill.
Oh, we always have incentives we want to plug. Thank you, Jaxler. As I've said before, our next incentive coming up is the performance of Baka Mitai in Yakuza Like a Dragon. So if you want to hear the meme song, get those donations in. We're currently $400 away. And after that, we have Star Fox 64, so that run is a score attack, and the incentive is to remove your teammates, which makes the run harder.
I, for one, advocate for that incentive because it means that we take down Slippy, and I think that's a net good for all of society. So with that being said, you're actually going to see nestani skip an invention here. That's an upgrade for the Super Smash, which stuns enemies once you like hit the floor. But that's not useful for us. It actually loses about a second to go pick it up, so we're just going to ignore it in pretty much every category but Hundo. You're going to see nestani go for a cool key cycle strat here, where he's doing charges in a specific way. He's going to start a charge as soon as like the key like floats up into his like hind legs, and then that lets him get to the third key right before it like lowers down into the kill plane there. nestani's going to do another death abuse here in order to skip a cutscene here. This is another level that's supposed to be an auto-scroller, but because of all the cool geometry that's in this area, we can completely skip the auto-scroller part of the auto-scroller. So there's 4 different like urns that you have to break and push down onto buttons in order to activate the door to get out of here. We did a bunch of jumps to skip all of like the all of these like sort of like I guess like tombs that sort of get pulled out of the wall, move in and out of the wall on a set cycle that starts as soon as you load in. So it's essentially an auto-scroller. But because of all of like the weird and wacky geometry in here, we can actually go ahead and like just completely do that section out of order and do it a lot faster. nestani is going to intentionally not skid into the door. This is going to guarantee that he gets a very far skid slide as he enters Crypt 2, which will skid him off the ledge and allow him to die during the cutscene, which then allows him to skip it. And so nestani's got to do a really tight set of charge movements right there in order to get past that werewolf fella. That werewolf is historically very evil. You always, like, especially when you've been learning to run, we'll lose a second there. It's rough. We're going to grab the ghost monster token here that's kind of hidden in the center. And then we're going to go ahead and just do a really free skip back to a previous warp gate. So we have not seen this warp gate in Gloom in the Doom 2. And so for whatever reason, the devs accidentally made it such that the flags for unlocking that warp are the same as unlocking the flags for warp we were just at. And so as a result, if you hit that warp, you can just go use the second one over there, and that lets us bypass several of the intended levels to get to Green Ghost here. nestani's going to do a death warp there after grabbing that monster token so that he can immediately get into Gloom 3, which is where the Green Ghost boss is going to be, which is also a very fun part of the run. After we get, so each of the bosses have their own invention associated with it. Green Ghost gives us the Umbrella invention, which is one of the most powerful upgrades in the entire game. Allows us to hover midair. But this is going to take us into a very fun boss, which is totally not RNG whatsoever.
RNG.
So what nestani's going to do here is sort of option select the boss here. So the boss can either go like straight down through the middle or to the right there. And so what nestani does is wait as long as possible before the coffin closes to hit the button. So that way he can have multiples of these coffins active at a given time. So unfortunately we got a laser beam there. It's completely random and unmanipulable where the Green Ghost goes. And then on top of that, there's also a random chance that the Green Ghost will go ahead and attempt to spawn one of those lasers. Nice. And so you see that option select come into play there, where nestani goes ahead and hits that button as late as possible and makes that coffin hitbox linger as long as possible. So nestani sets up another pause storage as Daphne is moving into position to grant the umbrella. You have to be careful there not to do that too fast, or else you get something called an but we got to move on because we just skipped Black Knight again. So you're supposed to have the galoshes to be able to charge and break the barrels in front of the entrance here. but we just jumped over the invisible wall, so don't worry about it. Nestani's going to do maybe one of my favorite strats in the category here, where he's going to do a charge bounce. He's going to charge into that trampoline right there, do a double jump hover into a ground pound, and that soars him all the way up to this monster token here. Really fun little strat right there. You're normally supposed to hit a button down on the ground floor, and then hover from there, and using some of the fan blades there. Nestani's going to go ahead and hit this button here. We actually are going... so there's one monster token at the start of Fishy Clues and one at the end of Fishy Clues. And so we're going to skip those 2 middle levels in Fishy Clues by getting the first monster token and leaving, and then doing this strat where Nestani's going to get some height off of this lamp, do a leap of faith hover into the foreground here, and hopefully ground pound onto this bit of geometry here, jump off of it while it's still moving and pushing us away, and this is going to take us back to that same spot where we initially got void warp to at the very start of the run when we clipped through that water plane. And so
the reason that we're able to do that is because basically you have directional capabilities while you're in the Super Smash. So you can extend the Super Smash forward, you can extend to the left, the right. You can basically just basically keep your height and kind of just move to wherever you want. And so we use the Super Smash to basically just keep our height there so that we don't end up falling into the water. And then here we're just going to do a little wall climb there, and then we're going to do another pause storage collecting this token, and then we're going to go back to Shock 2. I know we love Shock 2. We're just keeping warping back to this place because we just love it so much.
Yeah.
And then next what we're going to do is that we're going to do a little trick known as Kate Skip, where we're going to basically clip out of bounds. Now, right now, and normally in order to get into the basement levels, we need to go fight Redbeard. But we don't want to go fight Redbeard because he brings us nothing of value that we want. We don't want his upgrade. We don't want to go fight him. So what we do is we just clip out of bounds just like that, and then we walk out of bounds to Gus 2. Now, normally that gate is locked and you can't get through it until you come to the other side, because normally it's a shortcut back into Creepy 1. But instead, we just clip out of bounds and then we just go to it ourselves. And normally we're not supposed to be in these levels again until we get Redbeard, who normally gives us the gum, so that we can basically gum a space kook in Creepy 3. And basically that space kook allows us to get into Gus 1, but right now we're in Gus 2, so by doing this we also skip Gus 1. So we skip a level and we also skip a boss fight as well. And then we're gonna jump up this wall here because that fan is actually the slowest fan in the game. Like when
it's so
slow, it is dirt.
It's molasses. It's real bad.
It's like really bad.
It's really bad. This is another.
What you saw me here is I actually skid it forward there because I jumped before I entered the door, and so by skidding forward, I actually brought the space cube towards me a bit more, and then that draw him towards me so that I could actually jump off of him, and then just get right up to the chandelier early. Rather than having to jump off a box to the left or do any other slower movement. And then right here, normally you have to hit the first button, and I basically just made a cycle there where I just collected all 3 keys in one go, rather than, you know, hitting the button and then going back and forth, and we don't want to do that.
It's a really hard cycle, so that's actually really impressive to hit first try.
And
so
right now, what we're going to do is that we're going to do soap skip. And basically, we need to soap normally in order to soap these ghosts, in order to basically create a bubble around them that creates a platform. And basically, this platform, it's just like a circle around the ghost, and it's just a platform. And basically, that just allows us to use them as a platform in order to hit that button. But instead, what we do is just go off the invisible walls there, and then we just fall into the button ourselves, and we skip the soap invention outright.
All right, welcome to Wreck. This is one of the scariest parts in this particular category. Nestani starts off by catching a specific flying fish cycle to ground pound off of it and bounce on top of an invisible. They put an invisible wall there to prevent players from just gliding across with the umbrella, but because the invisible wall has a solid hitbox, you can actually stand on top of it and completely skip the intended platforming through this level. Nestani's trying to do some very specific ground pounds and hovers here in order to avoid hitting a bunch of buttons that are used to move these different trampolines here. I think you're alive. Nice, good save. So Nestani was going for another charge bounce there,
Nasty, by the way.
which very, very scary situation there. Really good play. Rep 3 is a really cool one too. We've been seeing a lot throughout the run that there are just like random invisible ledges on walls sometimes that can refresh our double jump and our resources. So Nestani's going to use a bunch of them that has been labbed out in the past. Do another one hopefully off of this wall right here to get on top of this bit of geometry. It's a little bit funky sometimes. But that's going to get us that monster token right there. And he's going to go ahead and jump over another invisible wall to skip going to the backside of that level in order to hit a button and cause a boat platform to appear. So welcome to Aghast. This is arguably one of the worst levels in the entire game, especially when you're trying to 100% this level. It is an absolute nightmare. The thing that's really frustrating about this level is, as you can see, all these like boat slopes are super slippery. And like it's very hard to control your movement on them and like overshoot things. Nestani is going to try to make use of the fact that he can bounce off of the enemies to mitigate some of this, and he can also use some of the sliding capabilities to his advantage here in order to get a boost. So for example, you're going to see Nestani try to slide off the side here in order to get pushed towards the exit here a little bit. So that's another spot where even though there's not any like skips or any like serious movement tech, that's a spot where like the difference between a new runner and a high level runner is really exacerbated because of all of the skill that goes into play with making that part work. So we came out all of this way just for one more monster token. This is the Redbeard token. We're going to do a ground pound into another ground pound up here to get it. Set up one more pause storage here, which is going to... that's unfortunate. Yeah.
What number is that? 1, 2, 3...
So... to describe what happened, in order to get the pause storage to work, you have to unplug your controller and quit out of the game on the same frame. And if you beef it, what ends up happening is you end up quitting out of the game instead of, leaving and setting up the pause storage correctly. Oh, that's funky. Yeah, so Nestani's trying to locate the correct save file. So like you said earlier, he has a save file prepared for, hopefully prepared for...
I do have it prepared. Do any of these work? No. Okay.
That's strange.
That is strange. I have not had this problem before. This one works.
We'll see where this one puts us.
Me? Yeah, I don't know where this one puts me. It might be further into the run.
Double check your gas.
Okay, I have a gas token.
Check manner.
So I think I don't have mana. Okay, I don't have mana tokens. This is where we want to be.
Yeah, so this is the correct save. So we're back to where we were. All right, good save, good save.
We were going to warp here right after that anyway, so we are completely on track. Little concerning. Good thing that it wasn't on that memory card that I messed up. So
yeah, we're also going to be like turbo oversnacked as well. But it's worth noting that a lot of the ways in which we do these pause storage and this routing stuff is to avoid a lot of those snack gates. When you enter a level with a snack gate in reverse, it actually spawns you past the snack gate, and so you actually don't end up having to pay them at all. So there's an example in Fishy with the last token that we got there where we actually got to skip that warp gate. By just like completely entering that level from the back. Claimer and just like in general, the manor levels are going to go by really quick here because we have a lot more like inventions here than we're expected to have at this point in the game, and they're also just generally short introductory levels at this point in the run.
And also I want to button and say that if we have any plugs, this would be the last best place to do them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'd like to take a chance to talk about all the wonderful shirts we have that were made by the Yeti and all their wonderful LGBT artists. Put !Yeti in the chat and please check out all those amazing shirts. They're beautiful. $5 from everyone goes to the Trevor Project. Personally, I bought the Majima one.
Oh, great. I've bought way too many Yeti shirts. I can confirm that they're very good. So Nestani did a little bit of a wall jump strat there in order to avoid having to deal with the ghosts there outright. This segment has two major pain points, getting the Geronimo token and getting the Black Knight token. And so our goal here is to set up a shortcut for later that's going to let us skip most of the manor levels. And right here, we're going to be attempting to start by skipping a cutscene by jumping over it. And Nestani's going to attempt to do a wall climb here off of this wall. And hopefully if he hits it, it might take a couple of tries. This one in particular is really finicky. The goal here is to get an extra jump off of it, and then off of this one, up the top so that he can get enough height. There's actually an invisible wall that's set up next to this railing here that's supposed to prevent you from climbing higher. But again, you can stand on top of it if you get on top, which allows you to sequence break and jump straight to the Geronimo token, completely skipping the entire level there. So he grabs the token, immediately leaves, and now we're going to make use of that shortcut that we set up earlier. There's a bunch of shortcuts in this level to make backtracking faster once you come back with the umbrella. But because we never came here in the first place, this in effect just allows us to skip a whole bunch of stuff, which is like why getting the umbrella.
Levels.
Yeah, it's super broken. So now we're going into one of the most difficult strats, which is Black Knight early. What Nestani is going to be attempting to do here is a double jump into a ground pound, nailed it first try. Yeah, it's way harder than Nestani made it look, because the camera there sucks. That's another spot where it's like an intended sort of like level exit after you beat the Black Knight, and then you can get the monster token. But by doing that strat, you can completely skip that boss fight, and so that's sort of like the last part of completely skipping the Black Knight boss outright.
And fun fact, that is the token that we literally needed for the plungers. That is the one token that we needed the plungers upgrade for. That's it. Just there, because we have a way of clipping out of bounds and actually hitting those spider webs down. But again, the trigger's just there until you have the plungers. And so right now you're gonna see me going backwards through the manor levels that we literally just skipped by floating up on the fan. And you might be asking, why are we doing that? And that is because there is another token back here. But more importantly is because there is a warp gate at the end of Upstairs 4, which is the level that we're about to enter. Is it upstairs? I'm pretty sure it's upstairs.
It's new charge strat too. It gets me every time. That's a new development from when I was running the category.
Also, there's a cutscene right in front. It is upstairs. There's a cutscene right in front of there that we skipped as well, and that is the snack gate that we're talking about. So not only are we skipping about I think it's a 10 to 15 second cutscene. It's a really long cutscene. We also skipped a 400 snack gate, and so the reason that we want to go through these levels backwards is just so we didn't have to pay that snack gate. So again, entering a level backwards, we don't have to pay the snack gate, and again, snacks are time, and so right now we're going to keep going through. Well, we were going to keep going through upstairs. Maybe we just like leave, and maybe it'll work this time if I enter.
Yeah, let's take a look
again. Yeah.
Hopefully it's not with the safe out. Oh, there you go.
The wall's gone. So what happened there is that normally you have to play a minigame Shaggy in order to get up to the top, and then he holds the button down so that the door opens. But because we haven't been through here at all, the game is a little confused while we're there because we're not supposed to be behind that door. But if we just leave and re-enter, we trick the game into thinking that we did it legitimately, and then it just opens up the door for us. And then we're going to jump through this invisible wall, collect the Witch Doctor token, and then we're going to make our way back to Creepy 3, where we're going to go to Lab and collect the last 2 tokens, and then finish off the run by defeating Mastermind.
Yeah, so you're going to see right there that warp gate that we picked up earlier is going to allow us to backtrack here a lot faster as opposed to going back through Shock 2 and having to do the main way through. Almost made the cycle. That one's that one's really, really tight. Again, you're trying to make use of your narrowed hitbox there, but even then you can still take damage from those axes there. So this is called Redbeard Skip. This is normally how we skip the Redbeard boss fight, as well as the Soap Invention in shorter categories. You can do some wall jumps right there while the camera is not locked on you. And then we're going to float up to the top here. And so what you're going to see Nestani attempt to do here is skip this platforming segment. You're normally supposed to hit 2 buttons in order to be able to have access to these higher platforms, but you can hover and then do a ground pound in order to maximize your aerial drift midair, and that gets you up top to the very topmost button. And that's going to disable all the lasers in the area. You're going to notice that the laser texture actually doesn't disappear until we leave and come back. That's like a GameCube specific bug. That's actually not like a thing on PS2 and Xbox, I believe. And that's going to lead us right into Lido Skip. So we're going to skip a good chunk of the Little Lab of Horrors Part 2 by doing a bunch of essentially blind wall jumps off the back wall where the camera is at in order to get up and over to where that stuff is up there. Nestani's then going to do another wall jump up there to get that monster token. That's 20 out of 21. We've got one more to go, and now we've got Lab 3 backwards that Nestani's going to try to do. He's looking for a wall jump here in order to get back up onto the platform with the warp gate, so he can from there get more height. This one's a little bit tricky because it's one of those things where you have to react to getting the jump so that you can then start turning from the wall to make sure you actually clear horizontally. Now that he's up here, he's going to make use of these generators on the wall in order to be able to get height. These are really solid, consistent platforms. And he hit a button to raise a platform earlier so that he can make his way up to that hidden slope on the wall, and then reset his jumps over and over on that pipe that's on the overhang as a decoration, which lets you get up and past there. Really, really tough strat through there. This is going to allow us to skip a really long cutscene that we would normally see if we went into this level the normal way, and then we can grab the token and then do pause storage, which takes us right back to that warp gate that we were just at. We can pay that 850 snack gate, and that's going to take us into the final part of the run here. So we've gotten all of our monster tokens. All we need to do now is to defeat the final boss, and that will be the end of the run.
Yeah.
So we've got
and
two
if you
more.
notice, we also paid that snack gate with just 2 over, which is basically where we want to land. We want to land around 0 or like less than 5, which we did successfully. So yeah, good thing that our snack running was pretty good. Even with the reset, I basically set up these saves as I'm doing a run. So
The snack count smash, essentially.
yeah, the snack count smash. And right here, we're going to do another trick where we're just going to just let Shaggy die to the shark. We're just going to let him get eaten. We actually don't care about his well-being at all. And we're just going to leave him there. And it's very unfortunate. But we're just going to make our way to Mastermind. And
Okay, there he is.
He's in the back. He's fine. Look at him.
So nestani just did something there called Smashless Acid, where he did a very specific movement strat to avoid like doing a smash to skip a platform cycle. Then he clipped through that wall there by holding a diagonal while charging. That allows him to trigger these first 2 buttons to skip the first phase of the boss fight here. Now nestani's going ahead and attempting to defeat all of these enemies to trigger the next wave to spawn of these buttons, and so nestani is going to do a really interesting strat here in order to skip the 3rd phase. What he's going to do is hit 1 button, wait for it, and then hit a 2nd one, and then the 2 buttons are on separate timers to reactivate. So if he staggers the button presses there, it actually hits the flag that the game's like, oh, 2 buttons are pressed, it's the 3rd phase. All right, we did it. It's time to move on into the final phase, which essentially lets us skip the entire wave of enemies in the 3rd phase. So now Mastermind spawns, and nestani has to, bad RNG unfortunately, but nestani has to ground pound on top of the Mastermind and then push him into the lightning.
To stop when electricity spawns, which will be right now.
So that's time.
Yep. And that is Frights, and I'm going to pause the game just so we don't go into the 8-minute long credits sequence. But yeah, that is Frights. Unfortunately, had a little bit of a reset, but fortunately, all good. And that's actually, fun fact, the first time I've ever missed a pause storage in a marathon. Every other time I've done a marathon, never missed one. So that's a first time for everything, even though it's a bad first time.
Happens. What was your final time, out of curiosity?
It was I think it was between a 39:30 and a 40, so pretty solid.
That's not bad.
Even with a reset. But yeah. So I just wanted to do some quick shout outs. I just wanted to say thank you for Power Up with Pride for having me. This is one of my favorite marathons to support. I love the Trevor Project. I love what these guys do. And it's really just is a privilege to be a part of it again. And just quick shout outs that if you are interested in running all monster tokens or literally any other category in the game, I basically have tutorials on my YouTube channel for all of the categories in the game. So if you're looking for a new speed game to pick up, this is a very I would say a very easy game to pick up, because it basically just allows you to get running right from the get-go, because it's pretty accessible, I would say.
Yeah,
And,
I 12-hour challenged this about like 2 or 3 years ago when there were no resources, and I did it in like 3 or 4, and now we have even more resources. So this is like just
and now we have a
go
field of resources.
Oh yeah.
And another thing is that we do have a community Discord. It's linked on the Night of 100 Frights SRC page. If you look up Night of 100 Frights on speedrun.com, the Discord will be linked there. You'll get in touch with the community. I'm there. You have Mortal there, Cole there. Basically, all the homies are there. If you want to come in and chat, if you have any questions for us. And then last thing, my Twitch is twitch.tv/nestani if you want to throw me a follow. I run this game. I'm going to be running other games as well soon. And Jax, if you have anything else you want to say, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to shout out a couple of specific runners. I'd like to shout out Sam. Sam has worked, Sam the GOAT. She has been working really hard on this game for several years. She discovered the Shark Room skip that we saw on top of making like a ton of huge advancements elsewhere. And also just sort of archives a lot of our community's history. And it's really incredible to have somebody in our scene that is dedicated to something like that. So I wanted to give her a super shout out. I want to shout out the homie Cole, who has been pushing this game really hard as well. He's a friend of everybody and just an awesome community member. And he runs the Dog Island, which is impeccable. And so that should be enough to sing his praises outright. But he's the homie. So super shout outs to him as well. Shout outs to the rest of the community as well. If there's like another Scooby-Doo game you're interested in as well, the Night of 100 Frights community shares its Discord with like all of our Scooby games.
Yeah, it's all the Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
So, all of the Mystery Mayhem, First Frights, any of them.
Yeah, and, even like the point and click edutainment games have like their own chat. Literally every one of them. You think there's one they're missing? Nope. Thanks to Ali for being on the mic as well. Always good to hang out with the friends. And shout outs to this event in general. I probably took out more shout outs than you did, but hey, you asked for it.
hey, run it.
I also want to give a shout out to Nestani. Thank you so much for that wonderful run. Thank you for submitting a game that is better than everything Jaxler did.
True.
Oh, okay. Very bold statement as somebody who literally ran this game at this event a couple years ago. But okay, go off, Allie.
I don't know. I've ran it twice, man. I don't know.
Yeah, but I ran once.
Kind of getting ratioed.
Well,
2 more than 1. I don't know.
Okay, I ran 3 games for this event. 2 on short notice off back. Okay, anyway, no, I'm fine. I wanted to. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and kick it back for the next run. So thank you all for being here. It's not your sick. GG's. Thanks for having us, everybody.
Thank you. I was also going to say, Zoink, Scoob, that burn was hotter than our buffalo chicken and peanut butter sandwiches.
All right, buddy.
All right, everybody, show some love in the chat for Nestani and Jax. That was a wonderful run. Thank you so much for that. That was actually my last run on hosting. So I'm going to read this one last donation, and I'm going to say goodbye, unfortunately. But thankfully, we have $15 from Overzealous that says, "You're doing great, everyone. Love this cause." Thank you so much for that donation. Everybody, keep those donations pouring in. Check out those incentives. Check out the shirts. And just have a wonderful night. We love you all. I hope you have a great time. And I will see you later.